Brian May.
BBC Radio 2.
Hi folks, this is Brian May, and over the next hour, if you want to stay with me, I'm going to be sharing my experiences of one unique year. Now, which year are we talking about?
This is BBC One in colour.
Come down to London town.
A year that saw seismic developments in music, culture and science.
Soon the world's airlines will have to choose between supersonic planes like Concorde with limited payloads or the slower liners of the stratosphere like the Jumbo Jet.
It's the year when the first 747 took to the skies and our TVs burst into full colour just in time for Monty Python's Flying Circus to take flight.
8. Monty Python's Flying Circus.
It's a year when everyone from David Bowie and the Beatles to Jimi Hendrix and Led Zepp made us rethink what music could be. Oh yeah, and it's the year when we put a man on the moon.
We copy you down, Eagle.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The year, like you didn't already know, is 1969.
1969 is going to be one of those dates which schoolboys will always be able to remember, like 55 BC when the Romans first set foot in Britain, or 1492 when Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas.
So, let's start as we mean to go on. From their debut album, this is Led Zeppelin with Communication Breakdown. That's Communication Breakdown from Led Zeppelin's debut album. An amazing and earth-shattering piece of work. So in 1969, Led Zeppelin released Led Zeppelin 1 and Led Zeppelin 2. They played 5 shows at the Lyceum Ballroom in London in October 1969. I was there with Rog. Seeing Led Zeppelin for us was kind of exquisite torture, really, because they were what we wanted to be already, and they totally nailed it. The only thing they didn't nail, which was in our vision of what we wanted to be, was the harmony side, the melodic side, if you like. Mainly the sort of layers of harmonies and guitar harmonies, but all the energy, the unbridled passion and uncompromising danger was there, you know, and we were enthralled and yet I think kind of insanely jealous. Generally speaking, we were a struggling band at the time, and if people looked at us and thought, "Oh, are they a band?" they'd say, "Oh, are you guys in a band?" And we'd go, "Yeah, we're Queen." And they would look very puzzled and unimpressed. So after a while, like in motorway service stations, if people went, "Hey, you guys in a band?" we go, "Yeah, we're Led Zeppelin," which got a much better result. Yeah, so at that point, we were not actually Queen as such. But later on, things changed, and then I guess later on in motorway cafes, people would ask who we were, and we'd say, we're Queen. And then now, you can't stop people, of course. They know who we are and what we do. In those days, looking at Led Zeppelin, that was our dream, really, to be a rock group of that kind. They were a template for us in the way they behaved and handled themselves. Jimmy Page, of course, the guitar hero of Led Zeppelin, and moving from one guitar hero to another, Jimi Hendrix.
Hey, Joe, where you going with that?
I remember watching the Jimi Hendrix Experience on Lulu's TV show, The Happening, in January 1969. A very memorable thing and a very brave thing for anyone to do. Jimmy's played Voodoo Child with the band, and he then launches into Hey Joe, and then he changes his mind and says, "Okay, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to do something else." And he starts doom, 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 which is Sunshine of Your Love by Cream. Now, you could say Cream were kind of a rival group at the time, although I know they were friends, he and Eric Clapton. But I can't think of many people who would take that incredible risk on live TV to launch into something which is not even rehearsed and isn't your own song. And just go for it. That's Jimi Hendrix, the ultimate live and dangerous experience. So Jimi Hendrix and the Jimi Hendrix Experience, breaking all the rules. Now, at this time, Jimmy was living with his girlfriend, his guitar and his record player in Brook Street in London's Mayfair, which is just around the corner from where this happened, on the roof of the Apple building in Savile Row.
I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the group and ourselves. I hope we pass the audition.
So this is the Beatles on the roof of the Apple building, and it was their final public performance. 1969 was a massive year for them. They'd released the Yellow Submarine and Abbey Road albums, and then they released this single, Get Back. That's the Beatles' Get Back. Quite an epic performance, and says a lot about what was going on with them at the time. Of course, they never really did manage to get back together, and that was more or less the end of their public career. The Beatles, to us, were total heroes, apart from technique, how to use a recording studio, how to make a song come to life, how to write the song in the first place, how to communicate passion and make pure music, so original. But also, of course, they're about social change and psychedelia and the peace revolution, if you like, all those dreams which came together in the 1960s. And I suppose, in a sense, never got realised, but there were great hopes in those times, and the Beatles symbolised them in so many ways. We're still in 1969, folks, and I'm going to talk about The Who, and we're going to visit them. They came from Shepherd's Bush, very much a local phenomenon for us, and we used to go and see them, Rog and me. And it was about the most dangerous concert you could ever go to, because you never knew if they were going to turn up to start with. And when they did turn up, it was mayhem let loose. It was just so loud and dangerous and anarchic, I guess. This is long before punk. I think the Who kind of wrote the recipe book for punk, if you like. So they played local to us. We went to see them a lot. We followed them. We loved them. Here's a single from The Who, Pinball Wizard. And when you hear Entwistle's loud bang, it whizzes out from one side of the speaker, and Pete Townsend is on the other. So I remember that on my little record player, and how astonishing that was. Hard to imagine now, but this is The Who, and they ripped up the rule book. That's The Who, Pinball Wizard, epic track. It's impossible to think about 1969 without mentioning Woodstock, which of course was an amazing gathering of ideas and dreams and wonderful music. It epitomized the world movement for peace.
Now, it's going to be good food, and we're going to get it to you. We're all feeding each other. We must be in heaven, man.
Here's somebody who played on the Sunday. This is Joe Cocker with a little help from his friends. Now, I'm not a person who advocates doing Beatles songs, because generally you can't do them as well as the original, but I think this is an exception. Joe Cocker made something absolutely original and beautiful out of this song, and I was fortunate to perform it with him many years later when we played at the Prince's Trust. I will never forget standing next to Joe Cocker. It was a real shot in the arm. This guy was such a passionate performer and a great guy. Joe Cocker, with a little help from my friends. We're painting a picture of 1969. Some of you were there, some of you weren't. I want to bring it to life for you. It was a big year for me. I'd graduated from Imperial College London the year before, and I was making music of my own. We were starting to write and produce and plan for being global superstars. Ha! Insane dreams, really. Precocious boys. But it wasn't Queen yet. That would start the following year. We formed a band called Smile. Me and Rog and a young man called Tim Staffel, who sang and played the bass guitar. This is a song we released in 1969 called Earth.
I might be at a table and suddenly I'll catch a fleeting vision of her crystal seas. Or I might be standing in a crowded dockyard far away, underneath the sun I've never seen. 'Cause I have seen many worlds for what it's worth, but I'll never see again chasing waves of light out towards the rim, where stars are sparse and the cold of space seeps in. Or I might be in a barroom drinking methylated gin and thinking of the places I have been. Yes, I have seen many worlds for what it's worth, but I'll never see again the planet Earth, my adrift amongst the stars, I float from sun to sun, dreaming of the world that gave me birth. All the places I have been remind me there is none to match the green rolling hills I've earned. 'Cause I have seen many worlds for what it's worth, but I'll never see again the planet Earth, my Earth.
That was my old band, Smile, with Earth. So you can see we're very much influenced by the space age as it was in 1969, and Tim wrote that song, Earth, and we recorded it in Trident Studios within a couple of days of David Bowie recording his Space Oddity, which we'll come to later. And I should probably add, yes, we released it, but we released it to about 5 people, I think. It was on a Mercury label in America, and I don't think anybody ever knew. So it wasn't really the beginning of our career. It was the signal to us that we weren't actually getting anywhere. And I guess that's why we kind of split up. That's why we got together with Freddie, and that's why Queen came about. I have a fondness looking back. It was the beginning of everything. We were starting to generate our sound, Roger and myself, which became the bedrock of the Queen sound. And we also broke the rules. You know, we'd go out and play some kind of folk song, but in a very kind of anarchic way, a very electric and passionate way, like If I Were a Carpenter, I seem to remember. And just a very kind of different approach, which was our approach. So we start by transforming other people's material, and then gradually we get into writing our own material, like Doing All Right came from that period, and Keep Yourself Alive, which led into the Queen days. So in 1969, Smile, me and Roger and Tim are playing small gigs. If we're lucky, we get to play pubs and clubs and the occasional college date. But we would visit the big boys playing big gigs in the big places. For instance, Hyde Park. Blind Faith played in Hyde Park for free, and we were all there. Blind Faith was a supergroup. Eric Clapton and Ginger Baker, late of Cream. And they formed a band along with Steve Winwood and Rick Gretsch. Short-lived, but they made a great album. And I remember that day in Hyde Park as if 'twere yesterday. Sunshine, birds singing, and beautiful music echoing around the park. That was Blind Faith. Can't Find My Way Home. So who else was big in 1969? Well, the Rolling Stones.
Well, we all need someone we can lean on.
And in those days, you had to be a Rolling Stones fan or a Beatles fan. Apparently, you couldn't be both. But actually, I guess we were both, because we used to go and see the Rolling Stones too. And they came from my neck of the woods as well. They used to play Eel Pie Island and the Crawdaddy in Richmond, so they were very much a local phenomenon to us. By 1969, they were big. They were global. And they put out Honky Tonk Women, and they also did a free concert in the park, which we went to. Again, it was a very beautiful day. I remember sunshine. And it seemed very chaotic, though. Of course, they just lost Brian Jones, and Mick Taylor was standing in, and everything seemed like it had been very much thrown together. A little edgy, I suppose. But an amazing day, nevertheless. And I'm just thankful that I was there. This is Honky Tonk Women. You're listening to me, Brian May, on Radio 2, talking about my 1969. 1969 was a time of rock stars doing revolutionary things, as we've seen. Now, it doesn't get a lot more revolutionary than John Lennon and Yoko Ono in bed protesting for peace.
Beatle John Lennon and his new wife Yoko Ono went to bed today in Amsterdam and announced that they'll stay there for 7 days in a demonstration for peace. Above their bed are 2 posters proclaiming bed peace and hair peace.
If we did it in Paris, all they'd talk about was, oh, Monsieur Cohen had a happening in 1930, you know, and they'd only see it in that light. And in London, they'd say, oh, it's the freaks again, you know, so we get more effect on Britain if we're abroad.
Lennon is cold-bloodedly using the media that once used him to get the message across.
The message is peace, you know, that you can protest against violence many ways, and this is one.
Again, there are great dreams here, and a whole generation of fans and young people are joining this feeling of let's strive for peace. But it wasn't an easy ride, and you can see interviews of people interviewing John and Yoko and being very aggressive to them and telling them they're wasting their time and they're posing and all they want to do is sell their records. So there was a real kind of bit of conflict about peace. It wasn't an easy time, 1969. All these dreams, but also, I think, probably already the realization that the dreams would not all come true.
2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
And the song that goes with this is by the Plastic Ono Band, Give Peace a Chance. The Plastic Ono Band, led by John Lennon, Give Peace a Chance. Well, hopefully, folks, you've enjoyed all these 1969 memories so far, but I reckon I've saved the best until last.
We copy you down, Eagle.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
1969 was the year when Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong walked on the moon.
It has a stark beauty all its own. It's like the United States. It's different, but it's very pretty out here.
And I remember where I was, watching a tiny little TV down in Cornwall at Roger's mum's house. And there we sat watching this man come down the ladder and pronounce those famous words.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And there's been so much debate about those words. And I was lucky enough to actually sit with Neil Armstrong as the sun came up in La Palma many years later. And what an amazing human being he was. I think when we were watching, we had this feeling that it was dangerous and it was almost unbelievable. And of course, nowadays you have all this conspiracy theory nonsense. Yes, we got there. Yes, they did it. And one day humanity will do it again. But we had a strong feeling that this was adventuring at the very highest level. It's like climbing Everest, but more so. I think watching the moon landing had a big effect on me because there had always been a part of me that wanted to be in astronomy, astrophysics, astronautics or whatever. So I think I got a big pang. At that time I was set on a course away from my PhD in astronomy and into music. It's been a great joy to me that I am a part of astrophysics in this wonderful 50th anniversary year of the Apollo 11 moon landing. And I was able to actually gather together lots of stereoscopic pictures, stereoscopic stuff being another passion of mine. And the Mission Moon 3D book was born of that blending of the two passions. So what song could I possibly end on but this one? This is David Bowie, Space Oddity. I think I mentioned to you he was in Trident Studios the same time as we were, and he produced this amazingly timely and timeless anecdote about being lost in space. Interesting that it was revived recently in a more optimistic form by an astronaut who was actually up there singing it. Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield actually made his video for his version of Space Odyssey in space in the International Space Station. But now we're going to hear the original. David Bowie no longer with us, sadly, but I think this wonderful recording, done in quite crude circumstances, really still sums up the spirit of the times. This is 1969. This is David Bowie, Space Oddity. David Bowie, Space Oddity. Thanks for listening, folks. This is Brian May. My 1969 was produced by Liz Barnes and Nick Minter for Wise Buddha. This is BBC Radio 2 on the BBC Sounds app, on digital radio and on 88 to 91 FM.